Hey everybody, it's Dr. Osborne. Welcome back to Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain. We've got a great show here for you tonight. And before we dive in, I've got a special guest for you, and it's going to be a fantastic episode. But before we dive in, tune in. Let me know where you're chiming in from in the world, and let's see who we've got tuning in tonight. Remember, our goal, our mission is to help save 100 million lives. So make sure you're sharing this information, share this video, make sure you're subscribing. And if you haven't already, go visit us at glutenfreesociety.org and sign up for our gluten-free survival kit. We'll send you a bunch of free information on how to transform your diet and transform your life. So let's see who we've got tuning in tonight. We've got Ember from Ontario, Canada, and Marie from Toronto. Wow, where's all the Canadians are chiming in tonight? We got Marie from Canada, we got Ember from Canada, we've got Mary Ann from Fruita, Colorado. I can see questions are already coming in. Yeah, again, let me know where you're coming from in the world. We've got Sue from Brunswick, another Canadian. We got Donna from Katy, Texas, Wanda from Tennessee. We've got Terry from my backyard here in Sugar Land, Texas, and a lot of you are asking what time is the show. The show is now. It's time. And it'll last until we finish it up, until we wrap it up. So usually anywhere from 30 minutes to 45, sometimes even up to an hour. We got Jay from San Francisco and Jean from Arkansas and Carla from New Zealand, all the way across the pond. Welcome tonight, Carla, and Wendy from Georgia. All right, we got Noleza from Malaysia. Wow. The whole world is representing tonight, so I'm not going to hold back. Let's bring in our special guest tonight is Dr. David Jockers. I'm going to bring him right in. He should be coming in live right now. Here we go. Dr. Jockers, thanks so much for joining me tonight.
Absolutely. So good to be on. Thanks for having me, Dr. Osborne. And I just really appreciate what you're doing and your community. You know, you've got a great group of people here, like you were saying, all over the world, which is awesome. And love your mission, helping save 100 million lives. And that's amazing. And you know, there's so many people that are eating their way to early death. And so you're doing a great job getting the word out and changing lives.
Yeah, well, likewise, right back at you, man. I appreciate all the things that you're doing and the message that you're spreading. I know you've got next week, you've got your Fasting Transformation Summit coming. And I know a lot of people are, definitely going to want to tune into that. And that's part of what we're going to be talking again about tonight is just kind of some information to get people going. It's January, New Year, New You. A lot of people are looking at fasting as a method to help implore new and improved health in their life and in their diet. So I'm happy to pick your brain. I'd love to start tonight just simply by asking the question that comes in a lot to us. It's the top question we get on fasting, and that is, isn't fasting dangerous? Can you just kind of talk a little bit about the quote unquote dangers or benefits or whatever it is? I'll just let you take over.
Yeah, for sure. And, I used to think fasting was dangerous as well. I grew up and in my household growing up, well, number one, I was always underweight. So I was always trying to put on weight. And my parents, we would do a 1-day fast, like my family would, just as a whole family. For spiritual purposes. And I thought that was like the worst thing ever. I would eat so much like the night before. And then it was like the whole day I thought the only thing I'm going to do is like lay on my bed, because if I use any energy, I'm going to break down my muscle tissue. So I remember thinking these kind of thoughts. And so I always thought fasting was dangerous. It was like this huge sacrifice. But, as I started to study nutrition and natural health and going through my own major health issues with irritable bowel syndrome and then skin cancer later in my 20s, I realized that fasting is really ancestral. Like all of our ancestors fasted on a regular basis. I mean, they didn't have refrigeration and pantries and access to food to be eating 3, 4, 5 meals a day. Oftentimes they would go days without food. And this was a common thing. This is just, basically how they lived. And so really we are built for times of feasting and times of famine. And we're actually better at adapting to famine, our body is, than we are to feasting. And you look at like our society today, we have food in abundance, and people are sick, people are overweight, they are malnourished, even though they have plenty of food available, right? So we're actually well designed for times of famine. And there's a lot of cultures, like, for example, some of the listeners may be familiar with the movie 300 about the ancient Spartans. And the Spartans applied something called basically intermittent fasting, which is a, you know, a principle that we teach in this summit. And, you know, a lot of people are talking about this online now, intermittent fasting, where the Spartans would eat at night. And so they would drink water throughout the day, but they would eat very little, and they would train their bodies, and then they would feast at night, spend time with their family at night. And they were renowned for incredible resiliency, and to where, you know, a small group, 300 Spartan warriors, could take on armies of 100,000, right? Because they were just so powerful. They were so strong and resilient to stress. And that's really ultimately a great survival characteristic. And, you know, when it comes to fasting, I don't recommend it for everybody there, you know, and I'll talk about who shouldn't fast. But for most people, 99% of the population, fasting is part of your DNA. Fasting is something that strengthens our body, that actually helps us resist stress. It's actually one of the best ways our body, it's really, you know, in a sense, one of the only ways our body can actually eliminate viruses, you know, abnormal cell development, tumors from our system, all kinds of different things like that. So whether it's time-restricted feeding or extended fasting, it's one of the most powerful ways to cleanse, detoxify within our cells, and to stimulate powerful way of healing.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you brought in the Spartans, because, you know, part of my mission is to be Spartan-like with our diet, because, you know, our society has this social engineering around, oh, it's okay, little Johnny will be fine if you feed him sugar and let him hop around and act crazy, and continue to teach him that those things are okay. So like the social engineering around how people view food, or how people view how we should partake of food, is very, very warped. And you have to truly be a warrior, you know, to step away from that, and to have the courage to be able to step away from that, because people will look at you and tell you how crazy you are, or just how ridiculous that is, that you don't let yourself eat this, or you don't let your children eat that. So really that warrior mentality is what people really need in order to be truly successful, whether they're fasting or whether they're following a paleo diet or a grain-free diet or whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. You know, you've got to be willing to think differently. And so fasting, I always tell people, fasting is like a muscle. It's like fitness in a sense. The first time you ever work out, let's say you didn't work out at all last year, you didn't exercise. You go into the gym today, and, you know, you try, you know, you get a personal trainer, and you're like, okay, work me hard, I want to get in good shape. They work you hard, you are going to be really uncomfortable. Not only is the exercise itself going to be extremely painful because your body's not used to it, but you're going to be sore for probably 3 days to maybe a week. And if you were to judge your entire exercise experience off of that one workout, you would just say, you know, exercise is terrible. Nobody should do this. But obviously we know better in our society. We realize, hey, that you actually get stronger. Your body adapts, and you get stronger through that experience. So clearly, could you overtrain? For sure. If you go, you do a tough workout, and then you try to do the same thing the next day, and you're super sore, you're going to end up overtraining. You're going to do too much exercise. It's going to be catabolic. Your body's going to break down. You're actually going to create a massive stress response, and you're going to go in the opposite direction, right? So you got to get the right, you know, you got to work your way up slowly. If you want to run a 5K, you know, you might start by walking a mile, right? That might be the first thing that you do. And slowly but surely, your body develops a level of fitness. Well, it's the same thing with fasting. And so with fasting, we want to start small and just realize that your body's going to develop this level of fasting strength, or this fasting fitness. And over time, it's going to be easier and easier and easier for you. And one of the best ways to start is with intermittent fasting. So I always tell people, best thing to start with is like a 12-hour overnight fast. And I call it the simple fast. And it really is simple. And just about everybody can do this, other than maybe newborns, right? And what that means is, basically, if you finish dinner at, let's say, 7 p.m., you just wouldn't eat anything with calories till 7 a.m. the next morning. And so that's 12 hours. And when you wake up, let's say you wake up at 6 a.m., you go ahead, and the first thing you do before you ever think about food is you drink 8 to 16 ounces of water. You have to get 8 to 16 ounces of water in before you can even think about food. And for many people, they're not used to drinking water in the morning. And so like for me, I could drink 8 to 16 ounces in, a minute. For most people though, what I found is they drink about 4 ounces and they get a little bit nauseous and they actually have to kind of stop. They don't feel hungry at all. They have to stop. They have to wait at least 10 or 15 minutes before they can drink again. And usually for most people, it's taking them a half hour to an hour to get that 16 ounces down. And they do that and they're not hungry. And the reason why is because the water goes in. And really all of us are chronically dehydrated, especially when we first wake up in the morning, because we're breathing throughout the night. And when we breathe, we release water vapor. So we're always going back and forth between periods of hydration and dehydration. And in the morning, we're always dehydrated. So we need that water anyways. And when you put the water in, it expands your stomach and it suppresses a hormone called ghrelin. And ghrelin is your hunger hormone. And so when people wake up in the morning, right, and Dr. Peter, I'm sure, a lot of your patients will say, well, I'm so hungry first thing when I wake up. And that's because ghrelin is being released because there's nothing in the stomach. So if you start by drinking water, you're fulfilling an essential need. You're already dehydrated. And on top of that, you are suppressing ghrelin. And then you can allow for the natural ghrelin release that should come throughout the day when you're well hydrated. And so for most people, they can push off having to have breakfast for, typically an hour after waking just by drinking 8 to 16 ounces. And so that's just a really great, easy way to start. It's called the simple fast. Anybody can do that. Now, as we start to get into like deeper, longer intermittent fasts, the first thing I want to do is just explain who shouldn't fast. I don't recommend pregnant women to fast, especially in that second, third trimester. If your body's saying, I'm really hungry and you're growing a child within you, or like in my wife's case, we had twins, 2 babies at once, you might need to eat, right? And so 12-hour fast, I think, is totally realistic for a pregnant woman. But after that, you need to make sure you're getting, a substantial amount of calories, especially in that second and third trimester. So pregnant women should not fast. Young children, maybe in some cases, I know in Europe, sometimes they fast kids that have major health issues, but, in America, it's not really an accepted practice. And so, just as a disclaimer, I don't recommend young children to fast. Teenagers can absolutely do intermittent fasting. They can do it safely, but not young children. Certain medications like diabetes medications, seizure medications, in particular, those types of medications, you definitely want to talk with your doctor. I mean, if you're really on medication, it's always a good idea to talk with your doctor before doing any sort of lifestyle change. So that's an important thing. If you're extremely underweight, you can do some intermittent fasting, but I don't recommend extended fasting in those cases, right? So that's really, and type 1 diabetics, of course, as well, that have to manage their insulin. Those individuals definitely need, if they're going to do any sort of fasting, definitely need a really well-trained fasting coach to be working with them on that. But other than that, most people out there, last one I didn't talk about was people with eating disorders. If you've had an eating disorder, anorexia, bulimia, something along those lines, not until you feel like you are fully healed and perhaps, your spouse or your psychologist or whoever it is agrees that you are healed from that. Until that happens, I would not recommend fasting. We wouldn't want to stimulate another eating disorder. So get healed first and focus on eating real food. Follow, Dr. Osborne's no grain, no pain diet. And that would be a great approach if you have had an eating disorder. So other than that, everybody else is totally open game for intermittent fasting. And it's absolutely life-changing. I've been helping people design programs for intermittent fasting and also doing extended fasting for years now. And I can't tell you how many people have told me this was an absolute game changer for me. This transformed my life, this way of looking at food and timing out my meals and just eating really when I'm hungry and resetting my hunger hormones. And by doing that, it absolutely transformed their lives. They lost weight. They significantly reduced inflammation. Their brain turned back on. And so I've seen just dramatic health results. And, I think it's something, again, I talk about it in the summit, and in fact, on what you showed, Dr. Peter, that summit promo that you put up, I talked about how fasting is the most ancient, inexpensive, and powerful healing strategy known to mankind, because it's been, people have been fasting since the beginning of mankind, number one. It doesn't cost you anything. It actually saves you money because you're not buying food. So what's better than that? I mean, how many times do I hear people saying it costs too much to be healthy? Well, it doesn't cost you anything to fast. And I've had a lot of people that have come through my clinic or emailed my website team, and they've said, how do I get healthy? I have no money. I'm on a fixed income or whatever it is. What do I do? And I say prayer and fasting. I truly believe prayer, really working on your mindset, your emotions, and your spiritual health, and then fasting is the most powerful thing you can do to improve your health. And both of those things cost you nothing. So yeah, absolutely. So get started.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, the reality is that, at least in my experience, and this is, coming from not the world's experience, but my own personal and in the clinic, is that most people, when they develop chronic autoimmune conditions, when they develop chronic degenerative conditions, a big part of why they're developing those has to do with what they're eating. And so I like to look at food, kind of going back to that warrior, right? I look at food as a battlefield. And when you put food in, it's your gut versus the food. It's not as simple as, oh, this food is supposed to be a socially designed pleasure and enjoyment for me. It's your gut versus that food. If your gut is weak and that food is stronger, then that food is going to deteriorate your gut further. If you overeat, if you overutilize your gut, if you put too much pressure on an already broken gut by eating foods that are hard to digest, they may be perfectly healthy foods. You can overwork it and you can create symptoms. You can create problems like intestinal permeability and subsequently autoimmune disease. So a lot of people, fasting is like the ultimate, because, we hear so many of our colleagues talk about doing like a rotation diet or doing like an elimination diet. Well, fasting is the purest of all elimination diets in the sense that you're taking away everything. So if food is your enemy, then fasting, even a 24-hour and extended fast under good supervision, could be a major tool to helping your body start to reset and really sealing that gut. And a lot of people just they're scared of it, and they just don't realize that it can be so effective. So I love that you not only explained that fasting isn't dangerous, but I like what you said about people who should not fast. Now, there was a question coming in on breastfeeding. One of the audience wanted to know whether or not you thought fasting was okay for somebody who's trying to breastfeed.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that question. So when it comes to breastfeeding, what I've found, and I didn't know this before I had kids, but I obviously know it now with 3 kids. I have 3 that my twin boys just turned 3. So we had 3 under 3 actually for a period of time there. So when it comes to breastfeeding, what I found is that some women produce a lot of breast milk. No issue producing breast milk. Other women produce just the right amount. And then there's other women that underproduce, right? They need help. They need more. They need more support and supplement for their child. And so what I tell people is, if you are an underproducer or just the right amount, if you're producing just the right amount, then you need to be careful. If you're an overproducer, you have no problem with fasting, okay? Because you're already overproducing. So when you fast, you're telling the body, I'm in a time of famine. When you're in a time of famine, your body becomes more energy efficient, which is actually really good for your cellular health. However, you may not produce as much breast milk. So if you're just barely getting by as far as producing enough for your child, then other than like a 12-hour fast, I probably wouldn't go beyond that, just at least not in the beginning. My wife tends to be an underproducer, and she was having some digestive issues with, having the 3 kids so quickly. And we kind of played around with it a little bit, and we got her up to a 14 to 16-hour fast most days, and she was still producing enough milk. So that worked out. But I was really watching closely. I was asking for feedback. We'd only move it up. We'd move her eating window, or I should say her fasting window, up about an hour each day, just kind of checking the amount of milk she was producing. We got it up to, most days she's doing a 14 to 16-hour fast, meaning she might finish dinner at, let's say, 7 p.m. and wait till 10, 11 a.m. the next day before eating food again, right? So, and she's able to do that and still produce enough. We have a 7-month-old right now that she's breastfeeding. And so she's able to produce enough. And she tends to be slightly on the underproducing side. So it just really depends on the individual. Again, if you're an overproducer, you shouldn't have any issue doing intermittent fasting. You may even be able to do extended fasting and still produce enough milk. If you see a large drop off in your milk, then eat food, that's another principle I have when it comes to fasting. You might have a goal. You might say, hey, I want to do an intermittent fast. I want to do a 1-day fast, like a 24-hour fast every week. where I just drink water for 24 hours. And that might be your goal. And the first time you try to do it, you end up breaking your fast at, let's say, 16 hours. Well, there's no shame in that. You got a 16-hour fast. That's awesome, right? That's fantastic. You should celebrate that, okay? Guess what? The next week, right? Let's say you want to do it on Sundays. Next Sunday, try to extend it out a little bit longer, okay? And what you'll notice is that you'll get better at it. Over time, just like riding a bike or anything else or exercise, you'll get stronger. You'll get more resilient. You'll be better at it. And you'll be successful. So don't get defeated if you feel like you set out a certain goal and you didn't accomplish that. Fasting is really a lifestyle. It's not like, I don't look at it as, just like a one and done, or like, I'm just going to do like a 5-day fast and then that's it for the whole year. It's not really like that. You actually want to make fasting a part of your lifestyle where you're implementing, whether it's every day or maybe, 1 to 3 or 4 times a week, where you're doing some sort of like a time restricted feeding, where basically you're saying, okay, I'm only going to eat food in, let's say, an 8-hour eating window, meaning from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's when I'm going to eat my calories each day. And by doing that, we call that your building window, feeding window during that period of time. And when you eat, you're going to produce hormones like insulin that have to do with fat storage and building. Okay. And you need that. Insulin's critical. You absolutely need that hormone. Very important for thyroid function, very important for regulating blood sugar, just a wide variety of things, cell reproduction, but you don't want too much of it. And then you have your fasting or cleansing window, which in this case would be from 6 p.m. to 10 a.m. the next day. So that would be a 16-hour fast. And that's your fasting or cleansing window. And my goal for most people is to get them to have at least a 2-to-1. And often, if we can push it there, a 3-to-1 cleansing window to building window. Because we really, especially as adults, when you're a kid, you need a lot of building-based hormones because you're growing so fast. When you're an adult, you don't want to continually bombard the body with this message of building. That's not going to be a good thing. You need it for short bouts and short periods of time throughout the day, but certainly not all day long. And so by shortening that building window, you are helping your body to cleanse the cell, right? You actually do something called autophagy, where your body breaks down old decaying intracellular organelles. So within every cell, each cell has organs. So we know that we're made up of trillions of cells. That's what runs everything in our body. And in the cell, there's different organs, okay, including our nucleus, right, which is where our DNA is, including things like our mitochondria, where we produce all our energy. And these organs actually get damaged within the cell. So the body has this mechanism called autophagy, where we actually go in and we break down the old mitochondria, right? The old, parts of the intracellular organelles, and we rebuild them. We make new mitochondria, new Golgi apparatus, all these things we learned in biology. And so we actually rebuild those things and make them stronger and more resilient to stress. That's what we want. And the number one stimulus for autophagy is fasting. There are other things that help too, like exercise, great way to stimulate autophagy. Infrared sauna can help. There's certain nutrients like curcumin, right, that can help with autophagy. Green tea, right, things like that. But number one stimulus is actually withdrawing from food, right? By getting your insulin levels down and other hormone pathways, by getting those things down, by basically just not eating, you will stimulate this autophagy mechanism. Your body will break down these old decaying organelles and rebuild new cells. You're actually rebuilding yourself from the inside out. And when you do extended fasting, you can also stimulate a lot of stem cells, which are like young baby cells that are extraordinarily resilient to stress. And the more cells you have that have a high threshold for stress, it's like people that age quickly and that get sick often, have chronic inflammation in their body, their threshold for the amount of stress their body can handle is really low. So they encounter a certain stress, it overwhelms their body. Whereas somebody like myself that's really taking good care of my health, or somebody like you, Dr. Peter, we can encounter that same stress, and our body actually, it strengthens us. Like we actually get stronger through that stress. And that's because we have more of these stem cells. We have our body's been going through this process of autophagy. We've broken down a lot of these older decaying cells. We have healthier, younger functioning cells in our body. So we're able to resist stress. And that's really what we want to accomplish in fasting. Intermittent fasting and also doing an occasional extended fast can really help the body do that.
Yeah, I love it. Autophagy, for those of you, if you want to go look and read more about it and learn more about it, make sure you sign up for the Fasting Transformation Summit. I put the link in the feed for any of you who want to go and learn a lot more about fasting. We've got lots of questions that are coming in. Those of you who are listening, if you've got questions, specific questions, we're going to try to keep them to the topic of fasting tonight. I know there's a ton of questions, but I really want to keep them specific to the topic of fasting. So if you've got those questions about fasting, please make sure you go ahead and punch those in. One of the things I want to do is I want to just ask the audience a question, just kind of see who in the audience has already tried fasting and received benefits. So if you've received some kind of a benefit, symptomatic benefit or health improvement when you fasted, just type that into the feed right now, because there's a lot of people that are watching this show and they may be skeptic in their own mind. And so we want to just give them some stories of success, some potential things to look at, some positive reinforcement, because if they're thinking about doing a fast and they've got family members who may not be on the same page or family members that are trying to scare them away from it, we want them to see your positive experiences. So if you've had good experiences fasting, just type that in right now and just share that information with our audience. Again, we can help more people if we share this knowledge with them. I've got one question that's coming in that is about low blood sugar. Can you comment on, let's say somebody not diabetic, but maybe they're fasting and their blood sugar, they feel like they're getting dizzy or they feel like their blood sugar is starting to drop. What are some strategies for those individuals?
Yeah, so again, not a type 1 diabetic or type 2 that's on medications and you're dealing with what we call hypoglycemia. What you got to realize is, first time you fast, it's normal, right? Like that's gonna be what happens to you. Big thing you want to do is hydrate well and take some salts, take some minerals. Okay, minerals will help stabilize your stress hormones. You're going to help take stress off your body. So I'd say take a pinch of salt, a good quality like sea salt or Celtic sea salt, pink Himalayan salt, like a good quality salt, not your trashy table salt. Okay, so get some good salt, put a little bit of that on your tongue, and drink 8 to 16 ounces of water. And what I find is that most people tell me they feel better. Okay, you may also, especially the first time or two that you fast, I tell people to schedule in rest. Okay, even if it's an intermittent fast, just schedule in a little bit of rest. Okay, kind of like again, going back to the exercise analogy, if you didn't exercise last year and you went into the gym today, it's okay, it's January, doing this interview, it's January 7th, I'm going to get in good shape. You should go in with the idea, I'm going to be sore. Like if I work out hard today, I'm going to be sore tomorrow. So I'm not going to schedule something really intense tomorrow because I'm probably going to be sore. So it's having the same mentality when you first start fasting is important. You just realize it's going to be uncomfortable. But if you drink water, you take the salts, that will really help. It'll take the edge off. And staying hydrated is just so important to having success with your fast. And I also see that one issue people have is they're a little constipated. Okay, I tell people start the fast overnight. So like have dinner and then start fasting after dinner. You sleep, of course, right? You wake up in the next morning and hydrate well. Okay, and you need to have a bowel movement. Okay, it's so important. And so if you drink 16 to 32 ounces of water within the first hour or two of waking up, that will really help your body move your bowels. The large intestine is most active with muscle contractions between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. So if you're somebody that sleeps really late, you might miss that window. So it'd be a good idea if you're able to, if your schedule allows, to wake up a little earlier, drink a lot of water, and taking those salts can really help to move your bowels. Okay, you may also do some magnesium. Magnesium can be really helpful. Magnesium citrate can be really helpful for just getting the bowels moving. Helps relax the muscles. Good for stress and anxiety, things like that. So taking magnesium supplement can also be really helpful. If you do okay with black coffee, I'm okay with doing an organic black coffee. A lot of people notice that it helps them stimulate their bowel movements. So unless you feel more inflamed, if you have autoimmune disease and you feel inflamed when you do coffee, don't do coffee. But if you don't feel okay with it, then and that helps you move your bowels, then go for it. Okay, coffee, actually, the caffeine and the coffee bean itself actually helps stimulate greater levels of autophagy. There's actually great health benefits to coffee if your body can tolerate it. So so try that out, right? If you have a really good bowel movement within the first hour or two of waking up, you'll notice the fasting experience will be so much better, right? I think all of us can agree life is better when you have really good bowel movements in the morning. So do what you can to get that going, get your bowels moving, and you'll have a much better experience.
Yeah, love it. And those of you, a note on that coffee, if you're struggling with chronic adrenal stress and you find that coffee makes you jittery, or that coffee, amps you up, then that you have your answer. Coffee's maybe not the right thing for you. Jay wants to know how intermittent fasting can help with autoimmune disease. So
yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, great question. Because autoimmune disease is basically chronic inflammation in the body characterized by antibodies against different tissues of the body. So fasting is really the most powerful nutritional strategy that you can partake in to reduce inflammation. Eating anything, even though we say, blueberries are anti-inflammatory food, anything you eat, the act of eating itself promotes inflammation. Eating itself is inflammatory. Some foods promote a lot more inflammation than others, right? So the diet that Dr. Osborne and I teach is much lower as far as how it impacts inflammatory levels. But nevertheless, when we eat, we're promoting some level of inflammation in the body because we're going to have hormones that are stimulated that are pro-inflammatory hormones when we eat. So fasting, when we do that, we actually downregulate inflammation. Insulin goes down. Insulin's a pro-inflammatory hormone. So when it goes down, we start to reduce the amount of inflammation in our system. On top of that, we get this level of autophagy where the body goes in and breaks down a lot of these older decaying cells. In fact, we rebuild our immune system, believe it or not, right? So we've got obviously antibodies, alterations in our immune function when we've got autoimmune disease. And so our body will actually retrain the immune system through the process of fasting. And in some cases, people have had autoimmune disease for a while or chronic inflammatory conditions. I always tell people you get stronger with each successive fast. You may need a few years of doing intermittent fasting and maybe a few extended fasts before you fully, get over that condition, right? Along with, on a daily basis following, like the no grain, no pain sort of lifestyle and doing other things. Your body will actually get stronger. It will rebuild itself from the cellular structure through the process of fasting and this sort of anti-inflammatory lifestyle. So fasting is one of the most powerful ways to overcome autoimmune disease. Obviously you need to just realize that in the beginning when you fast, it's going to be a little uncomfortable because you're not used to it, right? And so you just start taking preparatory steps. And one of the free gifts, you actually get multiple free gifts when you sign up for the Fasting Transformation Summit. One of the free gifts is actually Dr. Osborne's talk. So he did a great talk on gut inflammation and how fasting reduces gut inflammation. That's obviously, cornerstone topic when it comes to autoimmune disease is the health of the gut. In fact, there's a recent rat study where fasting for 24 hours stimulated stem cells in the small intestine. So the actual enterocytes throughout the intestines the stem cells were stimulated. And so basically these younger embryonic cells that are stronger, more stress resilient were stimulated through fasting for 24 hours, right? And that hasn't been shown yet in humans, but it's promising as far as what we're looking at with that. And just like Dr. Osborne said, basically when we fast, the gut lining is only one cell wall. So if we're constantly putting stress on that, right, like just constantly eating, it's like trying to heal a broken ankle by walking on it. You're not going to heal it. It's never going to heal the way it's supposed to. You need time where you're resting it. You might need crutches, right? So fasting, maybe if you're doing, food, liquid nutrition, I know with my autoimmune cases, I do a lot of protein shakes and things like that because it's easier on the gut, less stress on the gut. Also doing fasting, really powerful for helping heal, seal, and regenerate that gut lining so we can prevent against large food molecules from slipping into the bloodstream, triggering more inflammation and more antibody production. So that's super important there. So that's one of the free gifts you get. You'll also get my fasting transformation quick start guide. And in that guide, I go through all the benefits of fasting. I also go through, I think it was like 9 different types of fasting and really how to progress in your intermittent fasting. I think that's extremely important. It's kind of like exercise progression. You know, I'm in really good shape. If, you know, somebody who didn't train came and tried to do my workout, you know, they would be so sore and exhausted at the end of it. Okay, but for me, it's the way I train my body. And so, however, you know, if you were to gradually boost your way up, right? If you were to gradually do a little bit more and a little bit more and allow your body to adapt and recover, and then, you know, give it a little bit more exercise stimulus, you're going to get stronger and more resilient. And it's really the same thing with fasting. You kind of go through certain progressions and you work your fasting muscle. And then what you'll notice is that fasting is a lot easier than you ever thought it was. You actually start to crave it, believe it or not. Like, I never thought I would actually crave fasting, but you know, I do 2, sometimes 3 24-hour fasts every week. And it's like when I don't do one for 3 or 4 days, it's almost like my body's telling me, hey, even though I love to eat, my body's like, my energy, so much better when I'm in that fasting window and when I have that as part of my lifestyle, that I need to get back into another fast. And, you know, that's a great component of it. And one other thing I wanted to mention that I didn't mention before was the effect of ketones. Because when you are fasting, when you're fasting, your body starts to break down stored sugar, and then it goes into your fat, your body fat, and it starts to break down your body fat. It produces these molecules called ketones. And ketones are actually really powerful epigenetic modulators, where they actually turn off these genetic pathways that amplify inflammation in the body. Okay, and so ketones have this profound effect at downregulating inflammation in the body. And of course, you've probably heard of the ketogenic diet. You can follow a ketogenic diet, but I don't think you really get the benefits of ketosis just from the diet alone. I think implementing intermittent fasting along with a ketogenic style diet is where you get the best benefits of ketones. And so, so that's really, you know, several different mechanisms for how fasting will help somebody improve an autoimmune condition.
Fantastic information. Thank you. We got more questions. Fran says, I have completed a 5 and 3 day water fast. After I stopped the fast, I have a period of major depression. Why is this happening? Is this an indication of my body not doing well with fasting? Is this a hormone issue? Thanks.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Number one, that's awesome that you've done those sort of fasts. That's a great accomplishment. Certainly shows a great level of willpower. So that's the first thing. Number two is, I would say, how are you breaking your fast? You know, it is important, especially when you get into an extended fast. Not important in an intermittent fast. Like, I'll fast for 24 hours and I'll have, you know, a big, healthy, no grain, no pain style meal. Okay. You know, healthy meat, vegetables, things like that, no problem. But if I do anything more than 2 days, it's important to have one recovery day. My principle, and I talk about it in that fasting transformation quick start guide that you get as a free gift when you register for the summit. I talk about this principle of a 2 to 1. So for every 2 days of an extended water fast, you want at least one recovery day where you're only consuming like a protein shake, maybe bone broth, or maybe some fermented food like sauerkraut or kimchi, maybe a really well-cooked soup or stew, steamed vegetables. You know, so it's like this 2 to 1 approach, because you actually shut down your digestive system. So your digestive system goes into hibernation mode. So you stop producing stomach acid, you stop producing bile, pancreatic enzymes. And if all of a sudden you throw a steak in there or something like that, you know, it can overwhelm the system and cause a lot of stress in your body, which can definitely cause more inflammation in the brain. So I would look out for that. So that's one area. The other thing is that when you're doing an extended fast, you're actually going to increase norepinephrine in your brain, which makes you just come alive, actually, right? Especially you hit this certain point. I find that on an extended fast is my hardest day. And then usually around the middle of day 3, I feel amazing. It's like all of a sudden I get this just incredible rush. I feel absolutely amazing. I feel alive. I feel super productive. And that really has to do with norepinephrine, huge spike in growth hormone as well. And you actually produce a whole lot of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic growth factor, in your brain when you get this spike in growth hormone. And so that combination, and along with the high elevated ketones, can make you feel euphoric, right? Absolutely amazing during that period of time. And a lot of people will say they have incredible spiritual experiences. They feel they're most productive when they hit this certain zone. And it can be different for different people. You know, when you first start fasting, usually the first 3 days really suck. And then by day 4, you start getting a little bit of that. Okay. But as you get more fat adapted and better at fasting, it happens earlier in the process. But anyways, sometimes coming off of that, you just don't feel it. Like you get used to that high, that natural high that you get. And then as you come off of it, sometimes you can, just notice that you're not feeling as good, right? And that could be normal. And then the other area would be perhaps when you are breaking your fast, you're consuming something that your body's having a food sensitivity to, triggering more inflammation, and that inflammation could be impacting the brain. So those would be the areas that I would investigate. Yeah,
excellent. Love it. And I would just add one other, which is if you are, depending on who you are, when we talked about who should not fast earlier. And, I would just simply add that some people who are extremely malnourished from a nutrient standpoint, it's always good before you start a fast, if you're considering especially an extended fast, to get with a good functional medicine doctor, have them check your nutritional status, maybe consider supplementing for a month or so, get your nutrient levels supplemented, get them up, make sure that you don't have B vitamin deficiencies or other things that could lead to, when you take food out, even more could lead to an even prolonged or an exacerbated nutrient deficit that could also stimulate depression. I've seen that happen with people with folate and vitamin B12 deficiency when it's severe enough. And this isn't the average person who just, we're talking about really malnourished people. Kind of people I would put in that category would be people who struggle with weight gain, people who are emaciated or have a history of anorexia or bulimia. Those are the types of individuals that really can have a severe enough of a depletion where that not only are they depleted from what they're eating, but their cells are depleted and they don't have any backup or reserve.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I mean, a B12 deficiency can cause a lot of issues in the body. So really good idea. Before you jump into fasting, I would get Dr. Osborne's No Grain, No Pain book. If you guys don't have that, it's a fantastic book. I got it over here on my shelf. And I follow his diet for like at least 3 months first, and then start doing fasting. You can do the simple fast, 12-hour overnight, and then follow his diet. And then after that, you can start experimenting with fasting. That will help. And then you may also, especially if you've got health conditions where you follow that diet and you're not seeing any change, then you've got some nutrient deficiencies, toxicity, infections. So you definitely want to work with a doctor, functional medicine doctor.
Yeah, excellent. Harry wants to know, will fasting work for rheumatoid arthritis or not?
Well, yeah, I mean, in general, fasting is going to absolutely downregulate those inflammatory pathways. Now, when it comes to a condition like rheumatoid arthritis or any autoimmune disease, there's a wide variety of things that are underlying triggers. And fasting, just going through a fast, it may not eliminate all those underlying triggers. So it'd be a good idea to get a full body workup, just like I was saying, follow Dr. Osborne's diet. Got nothing to lose there. Follow the simple fast, 12 hours overnight, hydrate your body in the morning, start following healthy lifestyle principles, get a workup, see if there's, significant nutrient deficiencies or other underlying issues that need to be addressed. And, work with somebody to implement a fasting protocol. You can start by getting that fasting transformation quick start guide. And I go through how to start to implement intermittent fasting. And I think intermittent fasting for most people is a really great approach, really great strategy that's very safe. And so just follow the principles I talk about in that.
Yeah, excellent. Jose wants to know, what about doing strength training during a prolonged fasting protocol? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jose. And I would say the first time you go through an extended fast, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you're continually going through extended fasts, one of my good friends, Dr. Rosie Main, she's a chiropractor, practices functional medicine as well in Idaho. She's actually speaks in the summit. She's a female bodybuilder. And she was telling me how she'll do 5-day water fasts and get some of her very best workouts during those fasts. And basically you're spiking growth hormone, and growth hormone is like anabolic fuel. So growth hormone tells the body, hold on to lean body tissue. So the idea that we're going to lose muscle tissue if we're fasting is a half truth. We do lose muscle tissue, but it's actually bad muscle tissue. It's actually, your body's going to get rid of the most inferior cells first. So it's going to break down muscle cells that have damaged intracellular organelles, damaged mitochondria, and it's going to actually use the raw materials to rebuild new healthy cells, new healthy mitochondria. So for her, she feels like she's stronger than ever doing this sort of training. And I even had this experience myself. I've always been really underweight. Rosie tends to, if she doesn't take care of herself, she actually she was pre-diabetic, not too long ago. So before she started doing the fasting, that's what actually helped her get going with it. For me, I've always been underweight throughout my whole life. And I recently did a 5-day fast, and actually it was a 4-day fast. And in the middle of day 4, I just felt so amazing. And it was like my muscles were like, I want to lift weights. And so I didn't plan to go to the gym, but I just felt this urge to go lift weights. And so I went to the gym, and at first I wasn't going to lift as heavy as I normally do. I was like, well, I haven't eaten in 4 days. I'm not going to lift heavy. And so I started lifting, and it was like, I just felt so good. I just felt amazing. So I was doing my normal weight, lifting, and I was stronger than I thought I would be, and stronger than I normally am. I had one of my best workouts. And then after that, probably about 2 hours after that, I broke the fast with a protein shake. And so I felt amazing. And on a regular basis, I work out at the peak of my fast. So like I ate dinner tonight at 6 o'clock. I finished dinner at 6 o'clock, and I'll work out tomorrow, usually probably about 12 o'clock tomorrow in the middle of the day. So 18-hour fast. And there's many days where I will only eat lunch, skip dinner, right? And then I will work out around lunchtime the next day on a 22 to 24-hour fast, and I feel great. Like I get my best workouts in. And that's because the body gets very energy efficient and very metabolically flexible, where it's really good. Like when I'm training intensely, my body's really good at taking stored sugar, glycogen, and using it for energy and preserving lean body tissue because of all this human growth hormone that's elevated in my bloodstream. And then when I'm done working out, it's just really good at going right in and breaking down body fat and producing ketones. And so you want to have that great level of metabolic flexibility, and fasted exercise is a great approach to that. Now, if you're dealing with a chronic autoimmune disease, you're dealing with major adrenal issues, maybe it's your first fast, I definitely wouldn't do that. That's more for fasting veterans. People that have been doing this, feel really comfortable with it. Then when you implement the high intensity exercise with the fasting, you get an even greater release of autophagy and human growth hormone. It's like, it's like the frosting and the cherry on top of the gluten-free cake, right? So there you go.
Excellent.
Of course, dairy-free, sugar-free.
And I'll add to that. I fast every day. I'm a 16-8 guy most days, a lot of times longer. And I work out every morning after a prolonged fast. I mean, I never eat. I think that's important to bring up, is don't eat before you work out for most of you. And that's not 100% true across the board to 100% everyone. But generally speaking, when you exercise, especially if you're doing any kind of high intensity exercise, that can actually create leaky gut. So if you dump a bunch of food in you right before you go work out and you create leaky gut through a high intensity workout, you're just dumping all that potential dangerous agents right down into your bloodstream. And that, again, it's better to work out on a fast if you're not a major diabetic or something along that line.
Yeah, absolutely. Super true. Stress is the antagonist to good digestion. And exercise is good for us, but it's also a stress, and it's going to pull blood away from the digestive system. You're not going to be able to digest your food well. So not a big fan of eating right before you exercise.
I like this next question. A little tricky. Victoria is asking, she says, I plan on working with type 1 diabetics. So I'm going to assume Victoria is some type of healthcare provider, and would like to know if there's any research you noted on fasting and type 1 diabetes.
You know, I really haven't done a lot of research on that, honestly, so I don't know a whole lot about it. Actually, my graphic designer for my website's type 1 diabetic. He does intermittent fasting all the time, feels great with it. And so I think that, again, just being real precautious. The good thing about type 1 diabetics is that they're good at measuring their blood sugar, right? They have to. It's part of managing that condition is constantly measuring their blood sugar, knowing their insulin levels. And so clearly they can't be shooting up a whole bunch of insulin if they're fasting, okay? Because, their blood sugar is going to go so low, they're going to be unconscious. So you just got to be really mindful of that. And they just need to learn, basically they need to learn the new numbers as they start to fast, as opposed to the old numbers when they were eating, from the time they woke up to the time they went to bed.
I can say that I've had a number of people with type 1 diabetes do very well with 16/8 fasts and monitoring their insulin. I'd say where you can get into trouble with type 1 diabetics is if they've got some type of a pump where they don't have control over the excretion of insulin.
Yeah.
So be very careful in that if you're giving anybody advice in that arena, that that they're monitoring that blood sugar and not driving so low that it could create a problem. Let's see here. We've got another one here. Nancy says, when you're sick with a cold, well, let's see if I can figure out.
Don't go away. Is it good to fast?
When you're sick with a cold, who don't go away, is it good to fast? Well, okay, a cold maybe won't go away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think most of us have been there where we feel sick and we just don't want to eat, okay? And that's a natural mechanism that your body is doing to put all its energy into the immune system. Digestion is very energy demanding. And the more energy we need to use on digestion, the less energy we have for immune regulation. And so that idea of like, okay, when we're sick, just liquids, stay well hydrated, get some salts, maybe some broth, and just rest, get sun exposure, lots of deep breathing. That's just so important. I mean, it's just so critical. Obviously, you can take supplements as well, vitamin C and zinc and bioflavonoids and all kinds of good things like that. But fasting is the foundation to me for a robust immune system to overcome or to prevent colds, fevers, and flus. Fasting, in my opinion, is like the foundation for that.
Yeah, I've actually, if it's bacterial, there's an old saying, starve a cold, feed a flu. If it's a bacterial infection, the more carbohydrates you feed it, the stronger it gets. So hence the starve a cold component. So again, if you know whether you have a virus versus a bacteria, fasting can always be very effective for bacterial infection. Matthew wants to know, what about fasting while on blood pressure medications?
Again, I would definitely be talking with your doctor on the blood pressure medications. Okay. So I think intermittent fasting should be fine, but obviously having that conversation with your doctor and then just monitoring your blood pressure. One thing that's going to happen is your insulin is going to go down. And so when your insulin goes down, typically your blood pressure is going to drop. So you'll need to really monitor that. Most cases of high blood pressure, from my experience, have to do with high insulin. And so again, when you fast, insulin starts going down, your body excretes sodium. Okay, you actually, believe it or not, need more sodium when you are fasting or on a very low carbohydrate diet. So your body starts excreting sodium, and oftentimes your blood pressure will start to drop down. So if you're taking extra blood pressure medications, then you definitely want to monitor that closely.
Yeah, absolutely. And with blood pressure medications too, one of the things I've seen people when they really get into fasting, they're monitoring, is their blood pressure starts to normalize and the medicine can actually become too strong, lowering the blood pressure, leading to fatigue. And if you mistakenly identify the fasting as the cause of the fatigue and not the blood pressure medication, it can land you in the wrong direction. So again, if you've got a prescribing doctor, work with that doctor, let them know you're fasting.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if fasting helps to lead to some improvements in your overall blood pressure, you might have some reduction in your medication in your future.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see. We got more questions than we're ever going to have time to answer here. Let's see. I think we've answered a few of those ones. Does fasting cause hypothyroidism? Michael wants to know. Does fasting cause hypothyroidism?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, just a straight answer is no. However, we think about like a time of famine. Okay, so our ancestors in a time of famine where they didn't have access to food, or maybe they were very calorie restricted, not enough food for a prolonged period of time, the body wants to become energy efficient. And so in order to do that, it's gonna over time lower the metabolism. Now, if you just do like a intermittent fasting, or 1 5-day fast every 6 months, you're not going to have any change in your metabolism. In fact, actually, because of the release of noradrenaline and growth hormone, you'll actually have a better fat burning effect on your metabolism, and the fact that your body's got to dig into your fat reserves. So in general, it's not going to impact your metabolism. But if you're doing, like a month-long fast, or let's say, anything more than 2 weeks, could it downregulate thyroid hormone? Absolutely. And if you're doing calorie restricted diet, so if your normal calorie needs are 2,000 calories and you're doing 1,000 calories for a month, okay, then you should expect some downregulation in your thyroid hormone. That's a normal adaptation your body's going to make, because it's saying, well, I don't have enough energy coming in from the diet, so I need to lower my overall metabolism. And one way it does that is by either lowering the amount of thyroid hormone that's produced, or the conversion of inactive T4 into active T3, which is what the actual cells use. T3 actually stimulates metabolism. So can a prolonged period of calorie restriction end up causing hypothyroidism? Absolutely. Will intermittent fasting do that? It's not going to do it, as long as when you eat well. My principle is this, is don't eat as often, but when you eat really well. Eat till you're satiated. You're not trying to skimp on calories. When Dr. Osborne and I eat, I know because I've eaten with them, we eat well, don't we? Like, we eat good, solid meals. We just don't eat as many meals as most people out there, right? We're eating typically 2 meals a day, something along those lines. And so we're just not eating as often. And by doing that, we're getting all our calories and nutrients, but we're reducing the amount of insulin that's being released, the amount of inflammation that's being produced in our body.
Yeah, not caloric restriction, just time restriction.
That's right.
Think of it that way. I got one more question. I think it's a great one, so I'm going to throw this one at you. We've got a bodybuilder who competes wanting to know if taking branched-chain amino acids, glutamine, and creatine would be considered breaking the fast.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. So technically, would it break a fast? Yeah, technically it would. But, if you feel like it's helping you and you're still, you're not going to, by taking those, you're not going to get this massive insulin spike, right? So you're still going to get a lot of the benefits of fasting. It's kind of like the same question people ask me, what if I put butter in my coffee? Or what if I have bone broth in the morning, right? Is that a fast? Technically, it's not a water fast, but you're still going to get a lot of the benefits. Certainly a lot better than eating like a bowl of oatmeal in the morning or something like that. And so you're still going to get a lot of good benefits from it. And, if you feel like that taking that is going to, like, if you're doing that before your workout and you feel like your workout's better, I would say you're probably getting a lot of benefits. What I found is that I like to take those things after the workout. And the reason why is that before the workout, especially if your body's got elevated ketones themselves will elevate branched chain amino acids, particularly leucine, which is your main anabolic amino acid in your bloodstream. So the effect of ketones in your bloodstream will actually increase leucine, which stimulates muscle protein synthesis. So when you train, it's almost like you've supplemented with branched chain amino acids already if you're keto adapted. So getting keto adapted by applying this sort of a lifestyle, whether, low carb diet, also in combination with intermittent fasting, well, it's almost like taking the supplement without taking the supplement. But then after the workout, in your recovery, your post-workout recovery, taking some extra amino acids and then doing creatine or whatever in a protein shake or something like that, I think that can have really great benefits when it comes to improving muscle mass and strength and performance. Now, if you're like doing a triathlon or something like that, some sort of extreme athletic event that's taking you more than 45 minutes or an hour or whatever it is, then you may need some amino acids, right? Or if you've been fasting for a long time and you're doing a 2-hour workout, you might need some intra-workout, intra-exercise amino acids, right? You might need to be drinking that or creatine or something like that. So I think it just depends on your goals, what kind of training you're doing. But in general, I don't have a problem with those things.
Yeah, and I would say if you're trying to maintain a fast after your workout, so if you're working out on an empty stomach and trying to maintain that fast, even a few hours after the workout, branched chain amino acids and glutamine can be an excellent way if you're taking them in free form with just a glass of water and drinking them as a powder. Can be a great way to keep the fast going in a sense. Technically, people will tell you that if you take on any food or any supplement that has calories, that you're technically breaking the fast. But I would disagree when we're talking about branched chain amino acids, because there's no digestion that has to occur. Branched chain amino acids are already broken down. They're already in their simplest form. All they have to do is be absorbed through your gut barrier. So there's not a whole lot of work to do. It's not like your body's got to break down this big piece of meat and strip out the different amino acids individually. So if you're trying to keep a prolonged fast after workout, but take something to aid in that recovery, then yes, branched chain amino acids, glutamine would be okay. Even creatine would be okay in the largest sense. Well, man, this is great, man. We threw every question at you. You got them, you rocked them, and knocked them all out of the park, in my opinion. I'd say if you thought Dr. Jockers really delivered a lot of value for you tonight, I'd just love for you to hit the love button and show him some love right now, and make sure too that you get over to the Fasting Transformation Summit. If you want to learn more about advanced strategies for fasting, want to learn more about how it can help you with disease, how it can help you with just generally a healthy lifestyle, get over there and register. It's free. It's no cost to you. I've put the link into our feed a couple different times. So just use that link, get on over there and make sure you join. Knowledge is power. And as I like to say, once you've learned something, you can't unlearn it. You can't go back once you are knowledge bound, and the truth will set you free. So get over there and get some truth dropped on you with Dr. Jockers and his summit. And of course, I'll be speaking in that as well. So make sure you grab those free gifts. Dr. Jockers, thanks so much for being with us tonight. How can people find you if we want to send them your way, aside from this Fasting Transformation Summit, if people want to come learn more about your mission and what you're doing?
Absolutely. Well, always a privilege and an honor to talk with you, Dr. Osborne. I look at you as a leader in this and somebody I've learned a lot from. So thanks for sharing your platform with me. And you can find out more about me just on my website, drjockers.com. I've got a YouTube channel, active YouTube channel, Facebook. So you can find me at all those places. And of course, at the Fasting Transformation program or Fasting Transformation Summit. So.
All right. Well, it's great having you on. Have a great evening, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, folks, you got it from one of the smartest and one of the best on fasting, Dr. Jockers. Make sure if you know somebody who's looking at fasting, wants to do a fasting program, share this video with them. Again, our mission here is to save 100 million lives. So by sharing, you can help me accomplish that and help me achieve that. If you haven't already, go by glutenfreesociety.org and pick up your free gluten-free survival kit. And if you haven't read No Grain, No Pain, what are you waiting for? Go out and get your copy today. If you don't have an Amazon Audible account, you can actually pick it up when you get an account. It's free. You can pick it up as one of your free book choices. So no excuses. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. We will see you next Monday for another episode of Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain. Take care.